Growing up, I had my Amiga and my best friend had a SNES. As returning viewers know, I love my Amiga and wouldn't change a thing. I still own and use my original Amiga from all those years ago, but there were still a ton of exclusive games on consoles I wished were on the Amiga. The SNES had a wealth of classics, but back in the 90s, most kids got games for Christmas or birthdays. My friend was fortunate to own several SNES classics, and I got exposure to quite a sizable number of games. So, today, let's check out
the SNES games that made me cream with envy. Super Mario Kart.
When I first heard of Super Mario Kart, I hadn't seen any screenshots in magazines, and my 11-year-old brain thought it was some kind of horse and cart game. So I was truly surprised to finally see the game and realise how silly I'd been. Here was this incredible racing game, and the 3D effect looked great at the time. The motion was fast, smooth, and it controlled incredibly, and it's still great to play today. But the mode we played a ton of was the battle mode. It was a fantastic competitive addition, which was a real breakthrough at the time. As a package, there wasn't anything similar on the Amiga or anything that really compared on other consoles, so each time we played, it just appealed more and more. And there's nothing quite like racing and cheesing a first place finish from your mate right on the finishing line using a red shell.
Street Fighter 2.
The Amiga version of Street Fighter 2 was pants. It's visually recognisable as Street Fighter 2, and I'm sure there were development challenges, but I still think the Amiga deserved better. So, once I'd played this on the SNES, the Amiga version just felt lifeless. The SNES version is faster, graphically superior, and felt way closer to the arcade version than the lackluster Amiga port. It's a shame the Amiga didn't get a better port, but playing this on the SNES at my friend's house always left me seriously jealous. It's fast, controls perfectly, and felt like a true arcade game in the home. The Amiga still had many a classic game that consoles couldn't achieve. And while there's pros and cons to any system, to stand in the playground at school and hear kids talking about spinning bird kicks and dragon punches felt painful when the only version available to me wasn't comparable to the fun they were having.
F-Zero.
Rolling back to the early 90s, the only time I played F-Zero was at my friend's house, and it was a stunning experience. Much like Mario Kart, F-Zero used Mode 7 graphics to create pseudo-textured 3D racing tracks. But as kids, it didn't really matter if it's polygons or some other trickery if games looked and moved like F-Zero. But what really made F-Zero really interesting was that it made full use of the SNES controller. The shoulder buttons were used as left and right brakes and were vital in navigating the courses, especially as the difficulty ramped up. Then there was the speed of this thing. It was impressive. And unfortunately, I don't think there was anything quite like F-Zero anywhere else besides the SNES at the time. And man, did I dream of something similar on the Amiga, but sadly, it never came.
Super Mario World.
Mario was always well known in the UK, even if it wasn't until the early 90s he kind of went mainstream with Mario 3. There was a Saturday morning cartoon I used to watch, and I remember the announcement of the Mario Brothers movie. It was a big time for Mario. The movie may have been bizarre. Wait, wrong movie? But the Mario games have always delivered high quality. Super Mario World didn't disappoint. It pretty much defined how platform games should play. Difficult and challenging where needed, graphically impressive, and a considerable step up from the NES games. It shared many design concepts with Mario 3, but refined the formula further. And much like many of the games on this list, Super Mario World controlled great. It was fluid and smooth in its movement, and if you failed, it was up to you to improve. And the more you played, improvement was pretty much inevitable. While the Amiga had plenty of great platform games, Mario had star appeal that added to my jealousy of my SNES owning friends.
Star Fox.
When this first appeared in the magazines, I distinctly remember it being called Star Fox in previews and then Starwing upon release. Not understanding trademarks and all the legal wranglings at a younger age, we all just carried on calling it Star Fox anyway. Why not? It was the better name. Whatever it was called didn't really matter, as it was something very different on console. I remember Amiga magazines clamouring after Guardian on the CD32 and AGA machines, and while I quite enjoyed that, it didn't really compare to Star Fox. Star Fox had some great shooting mechanics for the time, but what I liked and what drew me in was the idea that I was part of a team. The other characters frequently popped up with tips, information, or desperately asking for help. From the opening,
Good luck.
At the start of a level through to its tricky later levels, Star Fox was a unique title that I always dreamed about playing at home.
Donkey Kong Country.
I remember the previews for Donkey Kong Country and it all looked pretty cool. My SNES only friends were all raving about this ahead of its release, so before seeing this one, I already had some high expectations as the hype had built for some time. While a bunch of screenshots in a magazine were nice, it was finally seeing it in motion where it blew me away. We all understood the graphics were rendered on a Silicon graphics workstation, something we were beginning to hear of in the early 90s. Graphics alone weren't the only factor, as Donkey Kong Country was great throughout. The fluid and refined controls matched the movement of the apes on screen and how I imagined apes might actually move through a real jungle, and it's a decently challenging game throughout, which will test anyone who isn't well versed in platform games. Donkey Kong Country made great use of the name and the arcade history that came with the Donkey Kong name, but added deeper characterization and took the gameplay in a whole new direction. The hype was real and justified in this case, and the Amiga never had a game that played like this, so I was always super envious of this one. So those are the games which I was incredibly green with envy that I couldn't play at home. Some people are going to ask, where's Super Metroid or Zelda: A Link to the Past, or maybe an RPG like Secret of Mana? Well, that's simple. None of my friends had those games when I was growing up, so it's difficult to be envious of games that I didn't see. It was the arrival of eBay where I began collecting retro games and consoles. Starting with my purchase of a SNES around the year 2000, I suddenly had access to games and consoles on eBay that were difficult to find in second-hand shops. It became easy to just search for what I wanted. Then a few days later, I had a SNES and all the classic games I desired. Things were a bit cheap back then as well, as people were largely just offloading their old stuff. So I did eventually get all the games I've listed today and play them at home. It just happened to be many years beyond their prime when I eventually played these to completion. One bizarre aspect of buying from eBay was that the first two things I ever bought turned out to be from a bloke selling stuff who lived just 2 minutes from my house. What are the odds of that? I'm sure that everyone probably had friends with a different console or computer and games that they were envious of. So let me know in the comments the games you really wanted but never owned at the time of their release. And as always, a like, share or subscription is very much appreciated, and I hope to see you again soon.